In my part of the Midwest, most of us are pretty cut off from our rivers and streams. There's not a lot of access to them, and they're kind of invisible places for a lot of us. But I've been hanging out with scientists lately who spend their time wading around in them, studying all kinds of things. And man, they love these places. And often it's a lifelong affection. Why streams and rivers? What took you down this path?
I guess it probably starts in my childhood. I grew up out in the country, in the Flint Hills.
I grew up fishing and grew up playing in streams and creeks and lakes.
We'd have our nets and our buckets, and Mom would just turn us loose.
Grew up on a farm. Cherry Creek ran right through the middle of it.
We had a creek called Diamond Creek by our house. Spent most of my summer afternoons there.
Having the luxury of being able to go out and explore.
When I hear Spring River, I just think of home.
We just go catch critters.
Crayfish and tadpoles.
These folks have a great big soft spot for the creatures living in the water.
There's just tons and tons of different fish, and they're not just these little silver minnows. They've got all these different colors, greens, reds, blues. Real good example is the orange throat darter. Orange on the throat, some green bands on them.
Kai is over there nodding. You want to opine about the beauty of fish?
Oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. Not to mention they each have their own individual personalities. There are times where you can tell what it is just by its attitude they may have. Some of them are some saucy fish. Spotfin shiners have been pretty spicy the last couple days.
How big a fish is this saucy, spicy fish?
2 to 3 inch fish.
It packs a punch, though.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you've been hearing the voices of some of the scientists and science students I talked to for our 2 episodes on native freshwater mussels. This is the 2nd episode. You don't need to listen to last month's first, but if you missed it, I hope you'll go back and catch it. It's a fun one. Hanging out with these scientists, it felt like fish were the shiny, flashy creatures that hooked them on rivers. They're like the gateway drug to aquatic ecology, but they're just the start, because there's all sorts of fascinating things in the water, less vibrant, spunky animals that are actually totally just as amazing. So that's why I've been tagging along to learn about mussels. Today, meet 4 people.
All right, I'm James Whitney. I'm an associate professor at Pittsburgh State University in the biology department.
That's Pittsburgh spelled without an H, by the way. It's a college town near the tri-state border where Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma all mash into each other. And James is here with 3 current or recent Pitt State students.
Josh Holloway. I defended my master's thesis last semester.
I'm Kai Bockham. I'm a graduate research assistant.
My name's Jamie Leeper, and I'm their field tech.
So, James, Josh, Kai, and Jamie. They're kneeling in the Spring River, methodically searching the pebbly bottom for mussels. It is not a bad gig.
Very nice being able to sit here in nature and take it in as you're working.
They want to check up on the population here, how many they can find, how big they are, which species. This river is one of the best habitats left in Kansas for these animals.
Neosho mucket.
Nice. An old individual.
That's a Neosho mucket.
It is.
Man, when I was out with Trevor, he was hunting like nobody's business, trying to find one of those things, and it's the first one you pulled up here.
Yeah, one of their last strongholds in the whole world.
Last month, some of you may remember, I followed a biologist, Trevor Starks, on a different river where we searched and searched because Trevor really wanted to find even just one live Neosho mucket. I'm just like, Trevor Starks would be so jealous right now. It's no fair. He's working so hard to find a Neosho mucket.
There's maybe a 20-mile stretch in the Spring River where they're abundant, and anywhere else in the world, you're not going to find them really, so.
How does it feel to hold it?
It's really surreal almost. You go outside of this basin and they're rare to the point where they're on the endangered list. It's kind of surreal.
From the Kansas News Service and KCUR studios, you're listening to Up From Dust. I'm Celia Yopis-Jepsen. It is surreal to be in the one place on the whole planet where a specific endangered creature is a normal thing to come across. And actually, this river has a bunch of rare species. But why here? Today, the story of a river that's rich with life, different kinds of fish and mussels, but that's also still recovering from some of the Midwest's most brutal pollution, mining pollution. The Spring River has some hopeful messages for us about what recovery looks like, what we can achieve by starting to clean up our act. But the Spring River is also not in the clear yet, not by a long shot. And what this group of scientists from Pitt State is learning shows that new challenges loom on the horizon. Every river is different, reflecting its own origins and the land it flows through. So, the Spring River, with its pebbly, rocky bottom and its fast-moving, clear water tumbling down from the Ozark highlands, it's quite different from, say, the sandy, silty Kansas River cutting slowly across the state through farms and prairies. And even a river newbie like me, who doesn't spend a ton of time on rivers, can see and feel some of those obvious differences, like sand versus rocks. But for other details about what makes a river special, you gotta be a bit more clued in. So for this river, let's ask Josh.
The Spring River Basin has the highest fish diversity in the state. It's one of the most diverse mussel rivers in Kansas as well.
The water here just has lots of different animals in it. Why so much diversity, though? Well, there are a few reasons. Here's a big one.
I think a big part of it plays out over tens of thousands of years.
That's James, the Pittsburgh State University professor. The secret behind the Spring River's biodiversity goes back to this detail. It's linked to the Ozarks. And the Ozarks may have so much to offer because a long time ago, the region saved a lot of creatures from the ice ages.
There would have been a lot of extinctions,
Not fun times for fish and mussels.
especially if a stream got covered up by a glacier as well.
No one likes to be under a wall of ice.
Not just that too, glacial periods tend to be a lot drier as well.
Cold, dry, icy. Sounds pretty miserable. But while glaciers were busy mowing down a lot of the Midwest, all the way into Kansas and Missouri, they didn't mow down the Ozarks. So it was probably a refuge.
And then when the glaciers receded and things kind of became more suitable,
Animals could spread outward again through the watery veins that flowed out of the Ozarks.
the source population for fish to then recolonize other places like the Spring River.
And thousands of years later, turns out the Spring River is a fun place to look for mussels.
Another one.
Is that a pistol grip?
It is.
And it's got some beautiful kind of teal silver colors on
Yep.
it. Wow.
They must like this fast current.
There are dozens of species here,
They each have their own different shape.
and names that really paint a picture.
So my favorite so far would be the pistol grip
Curved totally like a revolver's grip.
or the rabbit's foot.
Long, narrow.
Kind of looks like a rabbit's foot in shape.
If you hold it at the right angle, a monkey face mussel honestly does look like a monkey. A butterfly mussel has a wing shape with pretty little stripes. There's a round pig toe, a three-horn warty back, a fawn's foot,
A what foot?
Fawn, as in like a deer.
and each of them with nuanced differences if you just take the time to see. Kai grew up around here.
And I would find mussels, or I'd find the shells of mussels, and I wouldn't think twice about it. And I thought they were all the same. They're all very different. Realizing how many there really are, it brings a beauty when you're walking through a stream. I always want to sit there and find all the ones I can.
I love the lines on all of them. They look like the contour maps when you're going hiking and you want to check the elevation. They're very intricate.
They are growth lines similar to the rings on a tree. And you can age mussels based on them.
Oh, it's kind of fuzzy. So what's this fuzz I'm
That is
feeling?
algae.
All these mussels are a boon to the whole river and other things that live here. To some animals, a nice mussel bed is a great place to drop by for dinner.
River otters, raccoons, muskrats, map turtles.
To others, it's home.
Not entirely dissimilar from a coral reef creating habitat in the ocean.
A place where algae grow and underwater insect larvae hang out. And there are even little fish and snails that'll hide in the shells of dead mussels,
Not to mention the filtering they do for the water
pulling bacteria and things out of it.
to make water livable for fish and other organisms.
So mussels, they're making some pretty solid contributions to the world around them. But now it's time to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly about the Spring River. And I want to start by having you imagine the river system in two sections that we'll just call, for simplicity's sake, upstream and downstream. If you're local and you know the lay of the land, think of where Center Creek flows into the Spring River. That's the dividing line. Okay, so right now I'm standing upstream, and I'll tell you more about this area in a bit. First, let's talk about downstream, where this river has taken one heck of a beating because it flows through the Tri-State Mining District: Southeast Kansas, Southwest Missouri, Northeast Oklahoma.
The earliest mining started in the middle 1800s.
This area had a lot of lead, zinc, and coal. Mining towns sprung up. The region became one of the top sources of lead and zinc in the world. But there was a price.
A lot of heavy metals from the lead and zinc mining, and with the coal mining, a lot of acid mine drainage coming from that.
All the mining waste.
The chat, as they call it.
It was toxic.
And yeah, there's just all this bad stuff that is left over from that.
Piles of crud, leaking heavy metals.
Like after a rainstorm, it'll hit the chat piles, or it'll hit these underground mine shafts and just dissolve that stuff and wash it into the nearest creek or river.
So creeks and streams in this tri-state mining area just got pummeled year after year with heavy metals.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the Pitcher area, if you've ever heard of that.
Pitcher, Oklahoma, about 30 miles southwest of where I'm standing with James.
That was declared the most toxic site in America at least 20 or 30 years ago, and they've actually had to evacuate the town.
The area was so contaminated, and homes and buildings were perched above all these old mine shafts that were unstable and just waiting to collapse. Now, of course, the decades of toxic pollution also hurt wildlife in the tri-state region, especially aquatic creatures. So, in the downstream part of the Spring River,
the fish community was greatly reduced. There was basically no mussels at all down there.
Now remember, we're talking downstream. I'm standing with James upstream. And the key detail that I'm getting at is that we're upstream from where most of the mining happened. The upstream part of the river got really lucky.
Yeah, up here, it never had the high lead, zinc, and cadmium.
To me, I don't know, it's almost like a modern version of that Ice Age story. Like something bad happened that killed a whole lot of animals, but it didn't happen everywhere. There was a refuge.
This has just kind of been a sanctuary up here for neosho muckets and other mussels as well.
And just like in the Ice Ages, as long as there's a refuge somewhere, there is a chance for animals to go forth and multiply again after things get better. Stick around, because that's next. So, like I was saying, for many decades, the tri-state mining industry was fouling the downstream Spring River. There was some mining and heavy metals upstream, but not on the same scale. So it is like the upstream really dodged a bullet here. And you had all these cool fish and mussels hanging out upstream, living a relatively happy life, and able to spread back downstream if we'd just give them a chance. By which I mean let up on the mining pollution. And eventually that did in fact happen.
Lead, zinc, cadmium, copper have all gone way down.
By the 1970s, the mines were just done. They were not producing enough anymore to rake in the dough.
Which also coincided with the environmental movement.
Across the country, people had been getting increasingly fed up with pollution for some time. And by the 1960s, it was becoming a mainstream idea that, hey, we got to start fixing this. Lake Erie had gotten so disgusting that people were describing it as dead. Bald eagles were scary close to extinction. You've probably heard about the DDT pesticide pollution. That was a big reason. And maybe you've heard of the Cuyahoga River in Ohio, the river that famously was so polluted that it caught fire. It actually caught fire like a dozen times over the decades, but most famously in 1969. And yeah, people were like, rivers are not supposed to catch fire. And so by the 1970s, you had a string of really important federal environmental legislation, just one after another.
Like the Clean Water Act,
That's 1972,
Endangered Species Act,
1973,
Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act,
1977, and in 1980, the law that created Superfund sites, big environmental cleanups. So there's this big push to protect rivers and rare species and regulate polluters, to remediate areas that had already become seriously polluted, like in the tri-state area,
requiring them to clean up the mines.
and to start dealing with the toxic leftovers.
So that all really gets into gear in the 80s and 90s, trying to clean up these areas, do habitat remediation, try to cover up some of these chat piles or bury them, plug up mine shafts. And so, yeah, because of that, all those cleanup efforts, all that money spent at these EPA Superfund sites, there's less and less metals running off into the river every time it rains, which means the concentrations have gone down over the last 30 years or so.
So, a few years ago, Pittsburgh State University scientists started to wonder. It's been 50 years since that series of landmark federal laws, and in fact, the heavy metal levels have been dropping. So, in the downstream Spring River that historically took such a beating, is river wildlife recovering? Pitt State folks ended up doing a string of studies, the first research into whether this is in fact happening in the Spring River. And they started with
Rifflefish,
rifflefish.
and seeing if they rebounded.
That's Josh again.
What's a rifflefish?
Just any little stream fish that lives inside of a riffle habitat. So kind of like what we're in now, shallow, fast water.
So there's something about these rifflefish.
They tend to be more on the sensitive side.
Pollution really hurts them, kills them even, like, say, heavy metals from all those mines. So half a century into these key federal laws, this was a great question to ask. Are those sensitive little rifflefish rebounding?
We found that they were. They were rebounding quite a bit, including the federally threatened Neosho mad tom.
The Neosho mad tom's an itty-bitty fish,
Yeah, small little catfish.
the size of your finger. The Pitt State crew looked at insects, too, the kind you find in water like mayfly and caddisfly larvae. This is super important food for little fish and also easily killed by mining pollution. The researchers are finding as much of these aquatic invertebrates downstream as upstream. Big news.
All right, so how's another sensitive taxa group doing? How are mussels doing? And that brings us to now.
So they've been searching for mussels downstream, and things are looking good.
A big increase.
Spots where scientists were finding less than one mussel per square meter a few decades ago,
They increased by several magnitudes.
Josh and the others are now finding 3 or 4 mussels per square meter in those areas. They're not just seeing more mussels again, they're seeing more kinds, and that's how it should be.
That's a nice step in the right direction.
There's even one spot where scientists couldn't find any mussels of any species back in 1985, but over the past few years, Pitt State folks have found 6 species living there.
The Spring River is a success story.
Now, heavy metal levels are still high here compared to other rivers that don't flow through this mining region. I don't want you to think it's like all cleaned up. Cleaning up the tri-state mining district is not an easy lift. It is a huge ongoing endeavor. The U.S. EPA is still working hard on several Superfund sites there. Mining left hundreds of millions of tons of toxic waste piles. It's a lot to deal with. But even with everything that's yet to do, what Pitt State is documenting in the Spring River should remind us environmental remediation does actually make a difference. Fish, insects, and mussels are all showing really good signs.
What lessons does that teach us?
That cleaning up water bodies does have a positive impact.
That's James again. Plugging old mine shafts, removing mine waste, treating acid drainage, cleaning up miles of streams. Those are the kinds of things that have been happening. And it's easy to trace a line to the benefits for us, too. Heavy metals are bad for human health, for drinking water, recreation.
Like swimming, fishing in a nice clean river is a lot more fun than doing it in a river filled with metals. Like if you wanted to go fishing and eat your fish, you can't do it if it's filled with metals. And also, you're probably not going to catch as many fish.
Because, there won't be many to catch. Now let's turn our focus upstream to our refuge for endangered mussels, the historically not nearly as polluted part of the Spring River.
Oh, I just found one.
Oh, what'd you find?
Neosho mucket.
Neosho mucket. There are a dime a dozen here. Don't even care about them anymore. There's so many.
Let's not get carried away.
Okay, fair enough.
Are you familiar with the shifting baselines concept? We find a fair number of Neosho muckets, as you've been seeing, and we're like, oh, Neosho muckets are doing great. They must be doing fine.
When in fact, they are not. It only seems like they're doing fine if you don't look at trend data. I really hate to do this, but this is where I gotta reveal some bad news about the upstream. See, 20 or 30 years ago, scientists would find a lot more of them.
They are probably finding 5 or 10 times as many Neosho muckets as what we're finding right now. Like there's a report of one quadrat producing 60 Neosho muckets just in one quadrat.
One quadrat means in one single square meter.
We're lucky if we find like 60 in an entire summer.
So let me break down the bad news. The script may be flipping. Here in the upper Spring River, the non-mining area part, the refuge part, something is happening because now mussels are disappearing up here.
Why?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
One possible cause is ammonia. Pitt State scientists are finding spikes of it, like after storms. And ammonia can absolutely kill mussels, and in particular, really young ones.
What's producing the ammonia?
It could come from a variety of sources, like poultry farms. The litter from that is really high in ammonia. Fertilizer runoff from agricultural fields. We're pretty certain it's coming from the North Fork.
The North Fork is a tributary to the river.
Where exactly the source is in the North Fork, we're less certain about.
So the Spring River is not a simple story to tell. It is a success story in that animals are rebounding downstream. They are bouncing back from the ravages of mining. But here upstream, a new problem is unfolding.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows how complicated conservation and ecology can be in a river system and how quickly things can change.
To me, it drives home that our gains are delicate. It's not like, oh, we fixed a problem, boom, we're done.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's always new threats coming about.
And if this trend continues, then in the coming decades, the downstream will actually end up being a refuge for mussel species that could vanish upstream, the reverse of how it was during all those decades of mining pollution. And if we can just zoom out for a minute, the reality is this is not an isolated problem. Freshwater mussels are having an awful time globally. There's a long list of reasons: climate change, dams, pollution, invasive species, you name it. North America has about 300 species of mussels, and most of them are in fact struggling. This is a serious situation. But the point of this episode and last month's episode is to say there are apparently actions that can work. There's evidence that some steps can help important river wildlife like mussels and fish to rebound. And there are people trying to make it happen, like Trevor, who you met last month, or the Pitt State crew that you just met today, James, Jamie, Kai, and Josh.
You're studying a lot of animals that globally are in decline. How does that affect you emotionally to know that aquatic life is up against these challenges and you love aquatic life?
It's...
Here's Josh.
Conservation can be really gloom and doom, but the only way things are going to get better is to put forth the work to potentially provide a potential shot that these species can make a recovery. I mean, sometimes I've heard some people say, I feel like we're just recording species declines in real time, but I don't know. I try not to fall into that cynical cycle too much. All we can really do is just be out here, try and do the best we can to help them.
And if you do that, Kai says, sometimes there will be good news to celebrate.
Yes, you're going to report species declines, but every once in a while you do hit those hopeful where you find that they're increasing. So I feel like I'm entering a hopeful field rather than a depressing field.
just like the mussels that are increasing in the downstream Spring River, which isn't just good news for those mussels, but also all the other living things in the river that depend on them, like those map turtles looking for their dinner or the little critters that use mussel beds as their own coral reef-like home. And Jamie from Pitt State, he hopes that that is a reason for all of us to pay more attention to these little mollusks toiling away beneath the water, all too easily overlooked and underappreciated.
They've all got their niche and they've got their role in the ecosystem, and whether or not they're there affects other organisms that you might actually care about.
Up From Dust is a production of KCUR Studios and the Kansas News Service. This episode was reported, written, and mixed by me, Celia Yopis-Jepsen. My editors are Mackenzie Martin and Stephen Caranda. Another thank you this month to Ed Miller, formerly with the State Wildlife Department. And if you want more good news, Ed has tracked a very significant increase in mussel beds living on the Verdigris, another river that flows through Kansas and Oklahoma. There are stories to celebrate. Thanks also to KCUR's Gabe Rosenberg and Jacob Smolin. Music provided by David Kondos, Tom Lonnie, Milktooth, and Blue Dot Sessions. Next time on Up From Dust, it's winter, it's cold, there aren't any butterflies to chase, you're bored. Fear not, we've got a project that will get you outdoors, even in the cold, to have some fun and to do it in the name of science. Till then, and as always, thanks for listening.